Right? Hello, everybody. Let's start. So, on the other side. Yes. Welcome to this session about the Julian Francis Miller Award. So, we have. No, you don't hear me? Here? Okay. So, I have to take the mic here. Yes. Very convenient. Anyway, welcome again. For those who didn't hear me before, it is a Julian Francis Miller Award session. Julian Francis Miller, for those who might not know him so well, was, unfortunately, was a prominent member of our community, of the Revolution community. Graduated first as a physicist and got a PhD in mathematics, and finally he did study natural computing in Mercury University, and finally he was a professor until his retirement, and unfortunately he passed away a few months after retiring after a long disease. I think Julian is known for his scientific achievements, but also one should remember, especially in this audience, that he was important part in the birth of ESA, being the sort of technical coordinator of Internet, the European Network of Excellence, connected by Terry. Yeah, thank you, Terry. And that was at the origin of the Eurostar conferences. Julian is known as the inventor of Cartesian genetic programming, a way to invent programs by loading strings of integers and then mapping them on some Cartesian grid and with some links between them. But he's also well known as a pioneer in material computing, that is computing not in silico, but taking advantage of the physical properties of some materials. It is with liquid crystals, carbon nanotubes, and so forth. And we went to the FPMA, so you know, arrays. FPMA is material arrays, different material arrays. All these works, he was very concerned with development as a critical component of intelligence, intelligence at least. In particular, he was promoting the flag benchmark problem that many of us who tried developmental evolution have used. And in further, how can I? No. Yes. The Julian Francis Miller Award was created for important contribution to the algorithmic exploration and modeling of evolution, development, and or learning. So you have all the details here. It's a award every year. There's a plate with some prize. So it's to one or two individuals, and today we have the pleasure to have three awardees. And then we need for next year, we can nominate people until July 31, and here is the process that results in choosing the awardee. So as I said, well, it's pleasure to have two awardees this year, sorry. So Dario Floreano, made a great effort to come here, in spite of train strikes and all kind of inconvenience. And Lipson is online. Hi, Hod. Yeah, he couldn't come from so far away. So the idea is to, well, the tradition 1-year-old tradition. Is to have the keynote speech by the recipients, but because we are still recipients, we decided this year to try a new formula and have this kind of cafe, which is a free discussion around development, embodiment, and the like. I would just want to introduce the priorities. So, Dario, Floreano. Well, first of all, notice that both of us will be so up for the same common reason, and we in the committee want us able to distinguish between them. So, as you can read, for the outstanding and pioneering contribution to engine manufacturing, personal science by handling artifacts with elegant biological innovation observed in the natural world, that's showcasing how physical embodiment can propel the development and enhancement of robots and AI systems. Another condition is to start presenting people, let's say, ordered by the distance they traveled. Of course, hard is the farthest away, but because we didn't travel, we start by Dario this time. So Dario is a professor at EPFL, École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne in Switzerland, and director of the Intelligence System Lab. He made a brilliant career going through Sony, through Caltech, JPL, through Harvard, before joining EPFL. Was dedicated to the gap between human and machines, and in particular, so robots and artifacts. He is the author of the foundational evolutionary robotics, together with Stefano Nolfi, back in 2002, I think. It was inspirational to many of us, me included. First, there will be a demonstration in a book of the evolution, how evolution could really help in robots. But he also made a lot of work in autonomous drones, sorry, and more recently in soft robotics. Yeah, he also has quite a diverse formation with starting visual psychophysics, and then neural computation, and finally robotics, where I got a PhD. He's also an entrepreneur, founding two startups, one of them being led by the Parrot, well-known drone company, after something like Dario. Well, and maybe I can give just one word about this last book, well, from a robotic world, how intelligent machine will shape our future. This will maybe open the discussion for later. So, Dario, I would feel I have to give you a place. Thank you. Thank you. May I say a few words? Of course, you're welcome. Yeah, so thank you very much. It's really hard. Deeply touched me. I didn't expect it. And evolutionary computation and evolutionary robotics has been the place where I come from, has been my community, and I still have research in evolutionary robotics. Although my lab, as we may discuss later on also today, designs drones and machines and algorithms without necessarily using evolution. But this community is where I was born and still continue to work with, and this award has been immense recognition. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dario. Okay, so our second one today is Lipson. So I cannot handle the mic, but I will send it to you. Don't worry. So Hud is a professor at Columbia University. He's founder and director of the Creative Machines Lab, and his work all his life in AI and robotics. Got a PhD at Techman University, and then did a postdoc in particular at Brandeis with Jordan Pollack, and then at MIT. And already at Brandeis in 2000, he got a paper in Nature about evolving the morphology of robots. Then he spent 14 years in Cornell before joining Columbia in 2015. He's been always interested in working in self-repliant machines, robots, morphology, but also in creative machines, which is something can machine be curious, can machine be self-aware, and the like. And again, this can be some fuel for the discussion later. He's also author of many books. Just cite one of the first one was about 3D printing, which is one way by which robots can self-reproduce, of course. And interestingly, another one about driverless. Are we going to see autonomous cars, autonomous robots in the near future? And again, this opens the discussion, probably. But Hall also did many other things, and one thing that struck me because of my background is how to use GP for identifying natural laws from experiments. And that was the topic of a keynote he gave a few years back in our community, and I really love this work, I have to say. Though it's not robotics. So thank you, Hall. Let's all close on. And
thank you.
Here's the place. So if you want to say a few words.
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you very much. This is a wonderful moment. Thank you so much. One puts in a lot of work over one's career and lots of different topics, and it's wonderful to see this to receive recognition in this way. I really, really appreciate it. It was a little bit of a surprise to receive this. I have to admit, but it's incredible moment for me, and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, now we start the coffee. We don't have coffee. Okay, so maybe I got someone a burning question to ask to Rob and or Dario. Maybe we could start by asking them how they see the near future or the further future of the field in particular. For instance, is developmental evolution or embodiment prerequisite for artificial general intelligence, for instance, to make it as large as possible. So
I would love to say a few words. If I don't know, I cannot see if anybody's raising their hands or anything, but I think that two things are really interesting that are happening today. One is, of course, the generative AI is everywhere, and everybody's talking about it. For the first time, I think in AI history, every person on the street has heard about generative AI. It's always been a term, but it's been a term that we in our community have tossed around for a long time. We've been talking about generative algorithms and generative representations and all these different things for a long, long time, for decades. And suddenly everybody's aware of it and everybody's thinking about it. So I think this idea of AI being able to generate new things, could be called creativity or something else, this is the moment. This is the moment that we've been waiting for in this community for many, many decades, and here it is. So I think that's an incredible moment. And there's people here are entering the field who've entered it recently. Don't take that for granted. It's very, very rare that topic that you've been working on as sort of hits the mainstream. The second thing that I wanted to say, and maybe this is a topic that we can discuss a little bit, is I'm seeing a narrowing in the AI field in general as AI moves forward. 2 decades ago or a decade ago, there were dozens of artificial intelligence approaches, but now they're sort of narrowing down to only 2 are remaining. And one of them is, of course, neural networks in all of its incarnations. And the other one is evolution. And I think it's not a coincidence that this is happening. If you look around you in the real life, in the world, there's only two types of intelligence, really. There are brains and there's evolution. And these are two forms of intelligence that are designing things and making things. And these are the two forms of intelligence that sort of remain playing in the world of AI. So, of course, evolution is getting less attention than neural networks, but it's not going away. It's going to go stronger because, like neural network, it benefits from evolutionary computation, from computing power that's growing exponentially. So, because of this force, and it's because evolutionary computation thinks differently than neural networks, doesn't work with it from examples, it's going to remain and become more and more powerful. So I think and important. So I think it's good news for the community. And again, I think the importance of the work that our community is doing is only going to grow. So just wanted to say that as an opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's particularly important because in the audience we have a lot of students that are here maybe for the first time or second time, and that which shows what they do in their career. And so such message is very important. Thank you. Maybe Dario want to react.
Yeah, so I completely agree with what Hod said. If you look ahead in the future, if you look at what the next thing, in my opinion, is going to be, or one of the next things is the embodiment. So as Hod said, evolution and neural systems are probably one of the most evident manifestation of intelligence, but they all take place in a system, in a body. Now, if you look at the progress that has been made in artificial intelligence over the past few years, most of it has been in software with data. And when it comes to this progress that has been made in robotics, then not so much. And so if I had to start now, I don't say that everyone should do robotics, but applying or revisiting some of the concepts, what it means to learn from few examples in very short time is one of the next big challenges. And I think this is driving more attention, as you've seen, there are companies even now, because it seems this field also is quite a lot investigated by private institutions that can dedicate a lot of effort and can buy data. But a lot of these institutions, public and private, are paying attention to robotics now. So it's still unclear how to do it. Reinforcement learning takes too many cycles. I mean, the theory behind reinforcement learning hasn't substantially changed since Sutton and Barto's book, and we were just discussing earlier on with this idea that our brains now predicts the discounted reward of the future. And is it really the case? There was a paper in Science just 2 years ago showing that while our brain seems that it keeps a memory trace of what happened in the past, and then this memory lasts for a few seconds, minutes, sometimes hours, and if an event is triggered later on, there is a correlation, a pure Hebbian correlation being triggered that reinforces connection. So no need to predict the future. And that changes entirely the game. So what I want to say, I could give a science talk here, but I should stop somewhere. But what I want to say is, to answer your question, what the challenge is embodiment, machine learning and embodiment. And I believe that evolutionary computation has a role to play in better understanding how to combine architectures, learning rules, and rewards, and not only electrical signals, but different type of time-dependent signals that we still are not so aware of.
Thank you, Dario. Of course, at any time, people in the audience can react, comment, or ask other questions. Don't hesitate to raise your hand. Yes, there's one. So speak close to the mic, please.
Hello. Okay, hi. It's not really on topic with Gen AI and stuff like that, but I hope it's
Closer. Yeah.
close. Okay, it's not really on topic, so sorry about that. I'm new to evolutionary robotics, so apologies if I get the terminology wrong, but I'm interested in both your careers. Have you had a moment where you've been evolving morphologies or evolving like controllers or morphologies where you've thought, there seems to be some sort of phenomenon or behavior or performance here where it would be interesting to analyze the landscape of these spaces, as in like the genotype space, the phenotype space, whatever. Like you've maybe seen a strange phenomenon, like a really strong morphological attractors or something like that. Has either of you ever explored that or considered that might be an explanation for what you're seeing in your work?
Juan, you want to reply to
Oh,
this?
that's an excellent question. Usually, you know, we tend to focus on results rather than landscapes, but that's a really, really good question. So the landscape is very interesting. I'll just say one example. Recently, we have been looking at doing symbolic regression type problems where, and we're looking for the variables that explain a phenomena. So it's not exactly evolving robots, but we're looking at variables that explain a phenomena, and increasingly we are getting results that models that can explain phenomena very, very well. They're very, very compact, but we have no clue what they mean. We have no clue what these how these variables correlate to reality or to physics that people already know. So that and we run it again and again, and we get different results. They always explain what's going on, but they never. But we don't understand their explanation. And so I think we're entering this kind of a situation where the AI is creating models that are simple, very, very good, explainable, but not understandable by humans. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's very surprising. And I think it's hinting that the way we humans understand the physics, the world, is just one of many ways to explain the world. There's many, many ways to model the world. And we humans, we scientists have chosen one model, one way, one set of variables, one set of physics, but there's other ways to explain the same phenomena which we're not aware of. So that's an example, I think, relating to sort of seeing the broader landscape that you're talking about. It's a great question.
Yeah, and what on to that is, this is something that I've been thinking for some time. Is actually a very good point that you're raising. So I find that not everyone, but many researchers who look at the evolution of morphologies and brains, they look at the problem, the morphological problem, as a problem of design. What is the best? What are the best building blocks, and how do they come together, and what shape this will eventually take? And I find that this is to phrase it in your terms, very difficult problem to like that. For example, we have a software tool that I use also in my classes these weeks called robogen.org. It's a freely available software where you can evolve the morphology and the neural controller of robots. And you need to have very large populations and long generations in order to find something quite interesting, because probably the fitness landscape is not very nice. But I think there is I think personally, a more promising way of looking at the problem, which takes into account the morphogenetic process that leads to fully fledged bodies, or mature bodies, if you like, if there is anything like that. And so if instead of encoding and evolving the design of a body, you encode and you evolve the rules that make a body grow along with the neural system, then the landscape is much smoother. So the reason why, and again, I have no proof for this, but when I used to work some time ago, actually, with John Tinnis, who is not here, Andy Tyrrell, and Emma Hart, so we worked on the phylogenetic, ontogenetic, and epigenetic electronic tissue, where we were co-designing the controller and the physical space of FPGAs at that time. It turns out, and we're looking at the French flag, by the way, that Julian was one of the early morphological problems. It turns out that if you evolve the rules for growth of the substrate along with the controller, it's much easier. Few generations, higher fitness than simply designing a circuit that has to work right away. So I'm not sure I answered your question, but I think looking at the growth process, the ontogenetic process, also in the morphological space, is very promising.
Yeah, those are really interesting perspectives. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Any reaction or a question? No, not now. Okay, there's something I would like to start. That was maybe what my on about the huge compute power we now have. But this poses other problem because the sustainability of the whole process and the sustainability of this AI moving forward. So, do you think there is an issue or a trade-off between spending more and more compute and visualization, of course, is even in higher demand than even deep networks, maybe, if you need to evolve deep networks. So do you think there is a trade-off that they can reach, or do we, when what we be able to avoid this, let's say, exponential increase of energy consumption for AI, for virtual computation?
Shall we have Autumn go first, or as you like, or otherwise I can go?
You go, so I can think of an answer.
Okay, yes, because I've been thinking about this, and really, I put it the other way around. I think it is, as Hod said at the beginning, it's a great opportunity today to do evolutionary computation because we have more computational power available. Yes, it does use energy, but it's no, I think, evolution uses populations, and that's not a cost. So, and of course, we are recyclable, so we go back in nature, but we need to have computational power to do evolutionary computation. So one of the bottleneck I always found, and I still find in evolutionary computation, is that we need, especially when you do embodied systems, evolution of embodied systems, you need to have a simulator. And simulators takes a lot of time. Now today we can have this physics-based simulator distributed on large clusters. So we can do things that we could not possibly do just 5 years ago. So I tell my students, as Hod said, it's the right moment to do evolutionary computation. Yes, it will add to the bill and to the climate change, unfortunately.
Yeah, but also maybe like doing evolutions to design some systems, we spend a lot of computing power, but in the end, maybe we can come to a system that is not so greedy, I mean, in the energy.
Actually, I think I have an answer, but I think how do we probably mention that?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. This energy consumption of AI in general is growing. I think right now AI consumes about 4% of global energy, and it's only growing. So I think you're absolutely right. This is an issue. But here's my positive perspective. I think we are going to use this AI to solve climate, the climate problems, not the politics of climate, but we're going to use it to design better batteries, design more efficient chips that can do the same computation with less energy. And you know, the problem is that we human engineers have not been very creative when it comes to energy. We are still using steam. We're still using techniques that are very, very old. We're very, very inefficient, and we're not being able to generate batteries that are very good, for example, and things like that. So when I look at generative AI in general, including both evolution and neural networks, they are beginning to generate new solutions, new engineering solutions, not just robots, but batteries. There's already batteries that have double the energy capacity of lithium polymer generated by an AI, material discovery. And this will allow us eventually to solve the energy problem. So yes, we're going to consume a lot of energy, but we also, unlike other technologies that just consume energy, we are actually going to solve the energy crisis by creating new materials, and better photoreceptors, photovoltaic energy conversion, and so on. So I'm optimistic that the solution to the energy crisis will come from AI.
Actually, I think you gave a slightly different answer, but it's related to this. So I think evolution runs on anything. Sometimes you have bugs in your code, and evolution will still run. I mean, you have bug in what you evolve, and evolution will find a solution to that. And so I think that we do not necessarily need to have homogeneous banks of GPUs running our evolutionary systems. Essentially, anything you can use that can run a process, evolution can leverage that. So it's a little bit up to us how we can put everything together. I don't have a solution, but I sort of relate to what you said about, I believe there are more creative ways of using evolutionary computation to do the simulations in it.
So thank you to both of us. Yes, one question by Emma.
Thanks. So you've talked about the need to have embodiment when we're testing out these things, and also the cost of simulation. But if we're evolving in simulation, particularly the kind of robot bodies and things, there's always a reality gap between what you get from the simulator and the real world. So how do you think we should address that? Do you think it's a case of trying to make the simulators better, or do you think instead we should give up on that and actually work more on evolving directly in hardware with methods that have less compute and can be done much faster with less data?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's the topic of my research at the moment in the lab. My take of the solution to this is not the only one, of course, is that we should not, I mean, we should evolve plastic systems. So plastic controllers, so plastic, as I call it, plastic neural networks. So instead of evolving a neural network, a controller for a given body, you evolve a system capable of learning. And then when you transfer, there will always be sim-to-real gap. But I mean, it's just like, there will be like environment change, and we are all born and then we adapt to real life. Something will change, or sometimes we maybe lose the ability to use a limb. Okay, it takes sometimes we just to adapt because we have been evolved to be plastic, and because our environment changes so much. So if we think about evolving in our different flavors, I like the evolution of learning rules and learning architectures. I think it's a very promising approach. I think the sim-to-real gap won't be there. And in my early work back in the end of the 90s, in evolution of these learning rules, I already noticed that I could evolve in simulation, let's say simulation, but not physics-based, a controller, then put it in the real robot, and it would develop in very few seconds or minutes. It would maximize the reward function, fitness function, but it would display a different behavior, because there was a sim-to-real gap. And there has been recent work by Eric Medvedev and other people, Anthony Cooley, many people that show that the adaptive processes of these evolved neural networks are fantastic for addressing the sim-to-real gap.
Yeah, I think this is the question you asked there is sort of has been really the driving question for me for many decades, really, and it led to so the short answer is you do it in simulation, but you need to evolve the simulator, and this is and the simulator needs to get better and better. And for some reason, still, if you look at most robotics work, we use a fixed simulator. We use a simulator that we buy or download or from somewhere, or we code it from scratch. We do a lot of learning on robots, but the simulators are usually static. And I think the answer is the simulators have to learn from the experiences of the robot, just like the robots learn in simulation. And this co-adaptation is the ultimate way to sort of solve this sim to real gap that you're alluding to. And for me, it's also sheds light on, I know it's a big gap here, I'm going to say, but it sheds light also on the origin of self-awareness. This idea, this ability of our that we humans have, and probably many animals, to simulate ourselves in our imagination. We continuously imagine the future. We can imagine consequences of our actions. We can imagine what we're going to do, what other people are going to do, other animals, how objects are going to behave. We humans have learned to simulate the world in our brain, and we do a lot of learning in simulation, if you like. But that simulator that we have in our heads is not a static simulator that we got from NVIDIA. It's a simulator that is learning. It's continuously learning from our mistakes. It's learning from things that happen, from our observations. It's learning details that are relevant and details that are not relevant, and so on. So this idea, so we learn in simulation, but that simulation itself needs to keep learning from mistakes, from successes, and so on. And this is, to me, very important both for design of robots, but also for understanding human cognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, our builders are facing the same movement in some sense, and that my main issue is the lack of, let's say, coverage of the scenario space. That's something that even if you have the best simulator, you need to put it in some situations, and then there's some trade-off between having, let's say, a few scenarios, but then you will miss the real world, or doing what they do is also they drive for billions of kilometers in cars.
I guess this question is for Hart, or I mean, I completely subscribe with Hart's perspective. Co-evolving the simulator is another part, indeed, of the story. I really, but I think Hart may answer this.
No, sorry, I couldn't understand the question. Sorry.
It's about the scenarios. You must have the best simulator in the world, but if you have only a small subset of the possible scenarios, you will not be able to do some reliable robot or car.
Right. So I think in general, this is where the simulator needs to learn. I mean, even if you look at driverless cars, for example, most of the learning of driverless cars right now is on generated scenarios. It's not on, so you have it's the driverless cars community don't call it coevolution, but really it is. They have adversarial learning and situations which are essentially same idea, where you have a simulator generating scenarios for the car that are on purpose difficult for the car. And as the car gets better, the scenarios that are presented to the car for training become very, very different. So cars are not being trained on easy driving on the highway. They are being trained on situations where they're driving in front of a sun and there's something falling on the street and a ball crossing and a traffic light changing, all at the same, very difficult situations generated by a scene generator that's on purpose trying to do that. So we are seeing coevolution and co-adaptation of simulators and robots in industry all the time, and that's actually the only way. If you try to train a driverless car in just an ordinary driving, you will be able to get pretty good, but you won't be able to cross that limit, which is critical for success, which is being able to handle the rare cases. So that's so I think this paradigm, this question actually, that was Emma, I think, did you say, asked, is actually very, very important for moving for the next generation of AI, as Dario mentioned, which is embodiment. Because in the physical world, you cannot do as many experiments as you want. In the physical world, risk is important. Mistakes are expensive. Time is slow. Everything consumes energy. So the real world is a whole different challenge for AI. And the only way to circumvent that and still be realistic is to use simulators that learn from reality.
Coevolution, yeah. Thank you. Okay, Meng, sorry, your turn.
Yeah, thanks, and Dario and Paul for you sharing your experience with us actually. And what you mentioned is talk about AI. Clearly our evolutionary computation. We would like to allow people to think we are kind of AI. Mark mentioned the organizer thinking. We should call ourselves AI or something like that. All those techniques. What you mentioned is that not only the technical side, but also the real application side. You mentioned climate change and energy consumption or thinking, that's all important things. By the way, my name is Meng from and only a few miles away from here, actually. And our group, we have Professor Bush and also back here, and Andrew, we have 4 people here. Actually, our group also started using computational techniques for climate change, back is using that, and also environment, and Andrew has been also doing for the conservation for things. What I would like to learn from you guys actually, and what kind of scientific aspect from application side, climate change and the energy saving and have you and applied, or what kind of scientific contribution technique have you used, or you think that have a good future? Thank you.
Yeah, I think I gave a few answers already.
Yes, I think there are many ways that evolutionary computation can intersect with climate. If I understand the question, there are many. Like I said earlier, I think there are many ways to solve the climate challenge, and one of them is technological. Where we, for example, if you look at one of the biggest challenges right now, in my opinion, are lack of batteries. If we had batteries that were 10 times more energy dense, we could do a lot of things that we can't do today. From electric vehicles would become more useful to windmills, and so many things would happen if we had better batteries. But we don't, and we have not been able to do that for decades. Material scientists are looking at making better batteries, and the progress is very, very slow. But I think we can take all our evolutionary optimization techniques and apply them to material, and maybe it's on us to find better materials. And if we do that, we will solve climate. If we find better ways to improve photovoltaics, if we find better ways to make AI that uses computer chips that use less energy, there are so many challenges. There are engineering challenges. They're right where evolution can operate and solve, and we can make a huge impact if we sort of focus our incredible tools, generative AI tools that we have been developing on solving some of these issues. And as we spoke earlier, these challenges are actually very important for us. It's our responsibility to solve it because we are going to be one of the largest consumers of energy as well. So we need to do our share in solving the problems.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Howard has thought more carefully about the climate change. I personally am very interested in making embodied intelligence systems, and I'm taking actually a step back from electrical energy. So I'm looking now at recyclable and edible power energies. I have a European project called RoboFood, where we make edible robots and food that has robotic properties. And at the moment, what we are spending a lot of time is developing new forms of energy that is not only recyclable, but is also edible. So we're looking at batteries, edible batteries, and pneumatic batteries, where you have combustion and gases generated by edible materials. And it's material science. So you can use today artificial intelligence to do experiments. You can use chemistry to figure out what are the right proportion of elements. I'm not tackling climate change, so I'm just want to say that evolutionary computation and AI are powerful tools for discovering new materials indeed.
Okay. Thank you. So I have another question, Andrea.
Yeah, hi. So part of my question has already been answered, but still, I think I have to, maybe you meant to be a bit provocative with your very broad statement that we're going to solve climate change with AI. But I mean, yes, like the new developments notwithstanding, like if we've had technologies to make clean electricity for decades, if we've had technologies to have a good public transportation system for decades, and yet still lots of investments are being made into fossil fuels and electricity from fossil fuels, because some people, a lot of people, are just emotionally clinging to the past and to cars. How are we going to solve that with AI?
Who's going to answer that? Now, I don't think AI can solve everything. The human psychology and politics, there's a lot to it. You're right. But look, seriously, I think that a lot of people are clinging to other forms of energy, to fossils, simply because we engineers have not done our work yet. We have not created batteries, windmills, and alternative solutions that are good enough. A lot of people need to get to work, and they just can't do it with public transportation if they live in a rural place, or they can't use an electric car if it doesn't have the range, and so on. So it just doesn't work for many people. And so we engineers have to find better solutions. And when we find better solutions, people will switch. I don't think it's as emotional. I think it's very practical. So people will switch quickly. People want to switch. We engineers have to give them the right solutions, and we haven't. Now we're making incredible progress. We engineers. We are making batteries, and we are making driverless cars, electric vehicles. We are making windmills, but we're not there yet. So this is where I'm hoping that AI can help us accelerate. But how to change people's minds? I think people's minds will change once we offer solutions. That's my optimistic hope.
You're optimistic, Dario?
Yeah, I think Howard already mentioned that. So there is the human factor that, it's another dimension.
Yeah, okay, so let's continue to be provocative. You said when there's a solution, people will change rapidly. One way to enforce this is to act on regulation and law. And I will take a provocative example. In China, for instance, in Beijing, they decided from one day to the next that there would be no, let's say, fossil-driven to motorcycles anymore. Only electrical are allowed. And of course, it did happen in a few months, but this was China, and they maybe have other ways to enforce this. So how can we put this in perspective in our, let's say, more democratic societies?
Maybe I can start here. I read in The Economist, I believe this week or last week, an interesting statement about regulations and AI. And they say we are very concerned about regulations and making sure that things are done properly before we do anything. Instead, in the US and maybe in China, the approach is more, let's be optimistic and try things out, and then maybe we fix it. And I think this made me think, because it is true that if you look at what happened in Europe, we are although there are a lot of very interesting ideas originated from Europe, we're sort of catching up with other approaches where people use different approach. So I'm not sure to what it's true. Ethics and protecting minorities and rights of people is super important on his understanding, but I think we need to have a slightly different, at least in Europe, a slightly different approach, more optimistic into what these tools can do.
I'm sure Howard agrees.
Yes, I exactly agree. I think we, I don't want to be too extreme, but I think exactly we need to have less regulation. And if you want people to go electric, you can either force them to go electric, like the example you just gave, or you can win them over by making solutions that are so good that they want to come over on their own. I think that's a healthier, and it's harder. It is a lot harder to win people over than to force people over. And the responsibility is on us engineers to provide solutions that are so good, but a lot of people are reluctant to switch because the solutions aren't there yet. So we have to do it, and it's the same thing. I think that kind of top-down regulation versus sort of free market. We can debate this for eternity. We'll never find solutions, consensus necessarily. But the same thing with AI in general. There's a lot of push in the US, in Europe, other places to regulate AI and to sort of slow down what can be done and what can be explored and what can't. Whereas the reality is that there are so many possibilities, and we have to be a little bit brave, move forward, and see what happens.
You, any reaction in the audience? No. Any further questions? Don't be shy. When we're reaching the end of this cafe, but just to maybe calm down and have a nice transition to the lunch. One of your most recent papers, Hod, is about food and AI and with food. Could you tell us a bit more about this? I was intrigued by the abstract.
Yeah, so food is I did a lot of work on 3D printing, and it was a way for me to get robots into the real world. Actually, I'm not sure. And so two angles to food. One is as we did a lot of work on 3D printing of my dream, which has not happened yet, was to 3D print a robot that would walk out of the printer, batteries included. Print the whole robot, and if I could do that, I thought that we could start evolving robots of all shapes and sizes, and in the process, I saw that my students were calibrating. So we built these very complex 3D printers that work with dozens of materials. They were printing food in the lab to calibrate the printers, and that was sort of the birth of the food printing world. That happened in 2005, and there's a lot of food printers since then. We have so we've developed this whole little kind of world on around food printing in all its forms. So that's one angle. But the other angle that I think is a little bit more relevant to evolutionary computation is we have a project now called on robots eating other robots, robot food, if you like. And the idea there, it's a little bit what Dario mentioned earlier. We have a sustainability problem if we're talking about climate with robots. Robots are not sustainable. Most people build robots, and when the robot dies, they throw the robot away. There's not a lot that you can recycle from a robot, whereas we humans and animals, we eat each other all the time. We reuse the amino acids and the proteins from each other, from plants, and plants eat us. And the question is, can robots eat and reuse parts from other robots? So that's our robot metabolism project. It's actually coming out in a paper pretty soon. I think if we can have robots that can consume other robots and reuse parts, sort of modular robotics at a very core level, we can have a sustainable robot ecology and have real evolution with physical robots. So that's a different angle on food, probably than what you asked, but it's relevant.
Thank you very much. Okay, so unless there's a last burning question, we should thank Hod and Dario, the awardees of the Julian Francis Miller Award. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all. It's really wonderful. Thank you.
So it's time for lunch here, and I don't know what time of the
Time for breakfast. Thank you very much.
So we'll go for food now. Not really food, but food nevertheless. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Before you leave, you should have received an email about the conference dinner later. So we will take, as Anna called it, family photo at 7:30 on the big stairs in front of the Art Center. So the email contains a link with the way from here to the Art Center. It's just 5 minutes up the road into the campus, basically. 7:30 for a group photo, and then afterwards you'll have the opportunity to have a look at the Evolution exhibition that Sergio and Jessica here put together, which is right in front of the hall where the conference dinner will be. So please have a look at that because it's fabulous. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Can I?
Of course you can.
Yes, and also in between lunch for the students, there will be a brief chat with